Kentucky basketball had a number of additions to the roster this offseason. We're going to go through and grade each of them based on their impact this upcoming season, and I'll tell you why the Wildcats are ready to compete for a national championship.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we are going to grade each and every single one of Kentucky basketball's offseason additions based off of impact. This is not how good of a player they are or how good of a player they may be in 2 seasons. How will they impact the team this season? Going to grade that based on what we know of each individual player. Also on today's episode, going to tell you why Kentucky will compete for a national championship with this stacked roster. Has a lot to do with the depth and the way that Mark Pope has kind of gone through the SEC, realized what works, what doesn't, and how he got players that will fix some of last season's issues. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when their first $5 bet wins. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. Want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to the show, and if you were listening on podcast, I would also appreciate it if you subscribed there as well. We are desperately trying to get to 20,000 subscribers before the start of the season. I think we can do it. Thank you to everyone who is already subscribed. If you've been watching for a while and you haven't hit that sub button, whether it be on podcast or on YouTube, go ahead and do it. It is a very, very, very fun offseason ahead of us because we get to talk about this pretty new team. Wildcats add 10 new additions to this roster. We're going to go through and grade every single one of them based off of their impact, starting at guard. And we'll start with the lead point guard here in Jaylen Low, the Pitt transfer, going to be the primary point guard, primary distributor for this Wildcats team, and that's actually the main reason why I've got him listed here as an A grade. I think he is going to be very impactful for this Kentucky team. If he is healthy, the Wildcats offense, I think, is going to flow very smoothly. If he is not healthy or not able to get out on the court for substantial minutes, the Wildcats may have problems, which is why I've got him graded so highly. He is going to be the guy in the backcourt that's essentially the lone true point guard on this team. Yes, we've got so many different cats that could possibly play that position. Jasper Johnson, Denzel Aberdine, Colin Chandler. You've got a bunch of different guys that you could throw up there at the one and be the guy that runs this show if the centers are not the ones operating it, depending on the sets and what Kentucky wants to do, right? But if Low is out there and fully healthy, he's going to be that guy because he is the true point guard that's operating this machine the most. We saw it a lot at Pitt. We saw his ability to distribute. I think you're going to see it even more so here at Kentucky because of the new offense, the space, the pace, the way that Kentucky's going to operate things is going to be a little bit cleaner than maybe things were going at Pitt. If Jaylen Low goes down, the Wildcats machine takes a massive hit, and we know, based on what we've seen over these last several years, what an offense can't do whenever their primary point guard does go down. So I've got Jaylen Low graded as an A in terms of impact this upcoming season. I want to remind you guys, by the way, if you have any questions, if you have any opinions on maybe some of the things that I'm talking about here on the show, go ahead and drop them in the comments below. I'll do my best to either answer them on Twitter if you want to hit me at Locked On UK, or maybe I'll try and answer them here on the show in future episodes. But Jaylen Low, my opinion, I think he's an A grade impact. Denzel Aberdine, I have graded as a B impact on this upcoming season in terms of off-season additions. Aberdine is a B. This kid is going to be extremely versatile for the Wildcats. He's going to be able to play 1 through 3. I think that's very exciting when you talk about, again, just some of the issues Kentucky has had over these past few seasons, not being able to keep everybody in their backcourt healthy. At least you have somebody like Aberdine to lean on and say, okay, well, if your natural position is shooting guard or what have you, and our point guard or our small forward goes down, at least we can put you at the wing or the one and at least feel comfortable with you rocking there. And on top of that, he's got a lot of experience within this league. Experience goes a long way. We saw that with Mohamd Butler and, frankly, this entire squad last season. You had a bunch of different guys that had played quite a few minutes elsewhere, and they were able to come in here in Kentucky and make an impact. How about a guy that's been in the conference for already 3 seasons, going to be a 4th here in Lexington? Experience goes a long way. The versatility does as well. The only downside here that has maybe some of my concern is he's not the most efficient shooter on the planet. At least he wasn't at Florida. And he's also not the best defender in Florida's rotation. He's an okay defender, but according to defensive rating, and maybe just watching him, he wasn't the most impactful there on that end of the floor last season. Sure, Kentucky can take any sort of defense that they'll get, especially even if it's average. It's better than what they had last season, but we're looking for perfection. We're looking for, well, not necessarily perfection. We're looking for the best that we can possibly get. And Denzel, I think, provides you some really solid things, but it's not the most impactful, I think, for Kentucky, especially when you start to look at maybe some of the other players out of these 10 that could possibly be more impactful. Jasper Johnson, I think, is going to be a B-plus impact player for Kentucky this season. The reason I say B-plus, and it's over Denzel Aberdine's flat B, is because I think Jasper could be an insane scorer. Mark Pope talked in a recent video about how he was the most electric scorer in all of high school basketball a season ago. Expects him to be the most electric scorer in college basketball. If Pope believes in him, and based on what we've seen off of his tape in high school, he's going to be able to fill it up. I think that we should go ahead and start putting some stock in this kid now. Incredibly athletic at shooting guard, something that Kentucky didn't have a ton of last season. I think you have to be excited about the speed and the strength that he will bring here. Could he improve defensively? Yes, I think that you could have a similar conversation with Aberdeen as well, but Jasper is going to be able to, I think, fill it up at maybe a higher rate than maybe Aberdeen would. And again, that's not to say Aberdeen's a bad player or that he won't be impactful for Kentucky. I'm very happy that he's here. If I had to do the transfer portal again, he'd be somebody that I would take a hard look at and probably end up taking. If I had to choose so, because of how he can fit on this year's squad. But Jasper, I think, could be a little bit more impactful just because he's a five-star freshman that can score from just about anywhere. Braden Hawthorne, we're going to do this quickly. I've got him as a D-. He shouldn't be a part of the rotation this season, but we've talked about it whenever he committed. The long-term upside here is crazy. What he could do with a year in this system, he's able to develop physically, mentally, get comfortable within a college system. I think Hawthorne could be special in the years to come. And then finally here, before we take a break, we've got Cam Williams. Cam gets an A-. Crucial shooting on the wing. Kentucky needs a wing shooter, and they get one here in Cam Williams. Maybe not the most electric relative to somebody like Kobe Brea, but I think he's going to be very, very good, to say the least. Also, you got some athleticism. Kid's 6'8", 6'7". He's also a very solid defender as well. With 3 years left to make an impact on Kentucky basketball, we'll get to see Cam Williams quite a bit as long as he doesn't transfer. But this upcoming season, I think he provides some crucial things that the Wildcats desperately need at the 3. So we're going to continue along here in just a second, get lower into this rotation. Before we do so, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are winding down, and every single night has delivered highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action, and FanDuel makes it super easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. It's been really fun watching the Knicks and Pacers go back and forth in this series, now 3-2 heading back to Indianapolis. Both these teams have been extremely chaotic throughout the entire playoffs, frankly, but they seem to have a number for each other, coming back from big-time deficits, some big-time performances from some of the top stars in this rivalry at this point. This has been super fun to watch, and FanDuel is the perfect place to go if you want to possibly show up in the biggest moments, lay down some stuff on some trends that you've seen, maybe on some player props. You want to take some overs on Jalen Brunson and Tyrese Halliburton would not be the worst idea in the world, it seems, at least to me. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. You can head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. You can make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, continuing along here on the Thursday edition of Locked On Kentucky, Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. Really appreciate you guys checking out the show today. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, would greatly appreciate it if you did so. Trying to get to 20K before the season starts. Subscribe. Would greatly appreciate it. So we talked about the first 5 offseason additions based on impact for Kentucky basketball, working our way down the rotation. Jaylen Low, Denzel Aberdine, Jasper Johnson, Braden Hawthorne, Cam Williams. And now we're going to talk about Andrea Yelovich, which, brace yourself, I think Andrea Yelovich gets an A+ in terms of impact this season. The Wildcats, yes, they had some versatility at the 4 last season, with Ainsley Almanor and Andrew Carr both being able to step outside and knock it down. Almanor essentially being his specialty, Carr being able to go inside out. But Yelovich, I think, tops both of them because, first of all, he's taller than both of them. Second of all, I think he's got a higher ceiling than both of those guys did because of his ability to handle and his ability to defend. Could be one of the best players on this roster, Andrea Yelovich. A+. Pick up from Mega Basket. And I will say this about Mega Basket really quickly. I think their entire starting 5 is going to Power 6. Each player is going to a Power 6 school. Auburn just picked one up. I think one is going to Mississippi State, if I'm not mistaken. It's a very, very good team. And Yelovich was one of the best players on it during their playoff run. Good defender, good shooter, great scorer, can handle at 6'11", and can actually defend. I am excited to see what Yelovich does here this season. Hopefully in the long term, if he's not a one and done, because he could end up being one of the most impactful players on this roster. Because if you look elsewhere at the 4, you've got somebody like Mohamd Diabate, who I give an A. But I think that Yelovich will end up being more impactful because of what he can do in various aspects of the game. Dioubate, however, I think is going to be a significantly better rebounder. He's going to be one of the best, if not the best rebounder on this team. He's also going to be one of, if not the best defender on this team, which we'll get to, I think, who is the best defender on this team, and it's not an argument in a second. Rebounding, toughness, defense. Wildcats needed that desperately in their front court last season. This is a wing front court type player. Mark Pope said that he's just a tough cat. He's not a wing. He's not a power forward. He's just a really, really tough player. I am thrilled that Mohamd Diabate is on our roster this season if he can keep up the shooting from beyond the arc on low volume. And I'm not asking him to shoot 46% again. I just want to see him shoot a plus percentage, 35, 36, 37, somewhere around there. If you can get that out of him and the good defense and the elite rebounding, he's going to be very impactful. A is what I think for Mohamd Diabate. Jayden Quaintance, I think, gets an A+. This is everything Kentucky needs in a center. By the way, you realize as we've worked our way down here, what could end up being Kentucky starting 4 and 5, we don't know how the rotation's going to go, but their 4 and 5 are both going to be so incredibly impactful for Kentucky this season that if they stay healthy, the Cats front court might be the best in this league, and that's with Florida bringing back Alex Condon, Micah Handglotton, Ruben Shinyelu, Thomas Haw. They brought back all of those guys. But in terms of defense and in terms of high upside shooting, I think that you've got 2 of the best in this league here in Yelovich and Quaintance. They're going to compete for one of the best pairings in the front court in this conference and definitely in the country. But to talk more about Quaintance, this is one of... I think Quaintance is the best defensive center in the nation. That's not a hot take. I think that that's pretty set in stone. He's going to do some special things for Kentucky down low if he stays healthy. The kid also, something that I didn't realize until I went and watched some more of his film recently. Go back and watch that Arizona State-Gonzaga game if you want to. Kid has some pretty solid stuff around the basket offensively. He was shooting 60% inside the arc. He's a pretty good offensive player as well because of his wingspan length, because of his post moves, and he's only going to get better under Mark Pope. If he was able to turn Amari Williams and Brandon Garrison into one of the better 1-2 punches in this conference, what on earth is he going to do with JQ? I am so excited to see Jayden Quaintance in blue and white this season. I think he gets an A+ in terms of impact alongside Yelovich. Malachi Marino. Working our way down here to the final 2 players. I think Malachi Marino gets a C-. Why do I think he gets a C-? Some of you may be out there saying, well, he's not going to really play this season. He's not going to be a part of the rotation. I think that Malachi should get a little bit of playing time. I really do. I think that they should be able to, Kentucky should be able to dive into the depth here and pull Malachi Marino out at various points and let him get some run. He's a 5-star freaking center. He's not going to sit on the bench all season, and he's got an incredibly high floor. Kentucky prospect, I think he's going to get some run in the non-con. He may not be getting 10 minutes a game, but I think he should get a little bit just to at least see what he's capable of. He's already shooting up draft boards according to Pope and, well, according to draft boards. And I believe in him. I think that he could end up being a pretty dang good player for Kentucky in 2 years. A low-impact guy this season, but he's got such a high floor, I don't see why he wouldn't at least get some time. Kentucky can do a lot of rotating down low, I'm just saying. And the final player here that's just here for the ride, man, is Reese Potter. In terms of impact, this is not a shot at Reese Potter, who I think is a very capable player. I've got him at an F. Only because I don't think that he'll see the floor much, if at all, this season. Because you've already got Marino, Quaintance, Yelovich, Garrison. You've got all these different guys that you can play. Potter's the 5th option. And I think he's here for the ride. Somebody that can spray it, somebody that can pass it. 7'1". Who knows? Maybe he gets in. But as of right now, doesn't look like it because he's got 4 other guys in front of him. And just based on what we know, he is quite literally here for the ride as a Kentucky fan and a Lexington Catholic alum. So that is what I think about Kentucky's newcomers based on impact, all of their grades. Just to go through it one more time real quick so that maybe if one catches your eye, you can drop a comment about it. Let me know what you think. Agree, disagree. Jaylen Low at an A, Denzel Aberdine at a B, Jasper Johnson at a B+, Braden Hawthorne at a D-, Cam Williams at an A-, Andrea Yelovich at an A+, Mohamd Diabate at an A+, JQ at an A+, Mohamd Diabate at just a flat A, excuse me, I might have misspoke. Malachi Marino at a C-, and then Reese Potter at an F. Let me know what you think in the comments below. To wrap up the show today, I want to talk for a little bit about just Kentucky and their aspirations this season. I said it on the live stream yesterday, and I want to reiterate it here. Kentucky will compete for a national championship this season with their stacked roster. That should be the expectation for both the fan base and for this staff. Last season, this staff said, our goal each season is to try and hang a banner. And my pushback on that was, do you have the horses to do that? I think they had the scheme. I think they were very fun. I think they had a great non-conference slate, kind of slipped at various points during the SEC schedule because of injuries. And then they came out and made it to the Sweet 16. Trying so hard not to sneeze right now. Now, you look at what happened after expectations were met in year 1. Pope has done everything he could have possibly done to put together a great roster. Not a good roster, a great roster. Across the board, there are improvements for this upcoming season. And the strengths of this team on paper will match the SEC's best. Physicality, rim protection, athleticism, and I know that's kind of a dumb thing to say about athleticism because all of these guys are athletes. No duh. But when I say athleticism, you know what I'm talking about. You're talking about the guys that can jump out of the gym. You're talking about the guys that run like a gazelle at 230 pounds. You're talking about the guys that can spray it from anywhere on the court while also doing those other 2 things. They've got the muscle, they've got the athleticism, the rim protection, and they've got the speed as well. They have constructed a national title contender. We should walk into this season, if everyone is healthy, and expect them to perform as such. Anything short of national championship, competing for a national championship, is a disappointment. Those are the expectations from the staff, from the fan base, and I think that they are extremely valid this season. The reason I want to point this out is because last season, some of y'all don't want to hear this, those expectations were, frankly, unrealistic from both Pope and from the fan base. I think a lot of people realized and sobered up once the SEC slate started to hit, hey, this team's not going to win a national championship. They can get close, but they're not going to win a title because of too many deficiencies. On paper, heading into the season, the expectation should be Kentucky competes for a national championship. I'm not saying win it. I'm not saying even make the Final Four or make the national championship game. I'm saying compete. They should be heading into the NCAA tournament as one of the best teams in the field. Full stop. This roster is too good on paper to not do so. And frankly, I think the staff is too good to let this thing fall apart. I was very impressed with how Pope handled himself and this team during the entire schedule, beating some big-time opponents, setting a record for top 15 victories in a season. The Wildcats are better this season, and I say this with all love and respect to the guys from last year. On paper, they're a better squad. That first team will go down as probably one of, if not my favorite teams in all of Kentucky basketball history. I loved seeing those guys play last season. It's time to step up now. It's time to make a deeper run, which is what this fan base has been craving for so long. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK, follow me on Twitter at @LanceDawe_, and follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the YouTube comments below. You can hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and God bless.